What is up everybody, my name is Tyler Potts and in this video we're going to be creating our first React Native application. As you can see, this is the application we'll be creating. It's going to be another to-do app. I know to-do apps probably kill people, but to-do apps they tell you how to do the most basic stuff, and the basic stuff when you're starting a new series is always the best way to start with. Anyway, so in this video we're going to be creating something like this. So we're going to have a to-do app and we're going to say new to-do. I'm going to hit add. And as you can see, it's got a new to-do. We can then tick off different to-dos by just clicking it. And then we can remove to-dos by just hitting the remove button. And again, new to-dos and an issue. Yeah, so that's what we'll be creating in this video. Hopefully you learn something new, and hopefully this teaches you how to use React Native to create your own apps. Without further ado, let's get started. So the first things we need to do, let's close this. And let's head over here. So first things you need is Node.js installed, roughly 10 plus. 10.15.3 is the latest of this. This version will do perfectly. Basically what we need from Node is its package manager, the Node package manager. So if we go over to React Native, so facebook.github.io/React Native, and head over to their getting started page, you'll see how you can install Expo. And what Expo is basically allows you to create React Native applications and development surface, or run a development environment, so you can create your apps. And here you can see this, all you need. So once you have Node.js installed, if you head over here and you copy this, you open up your terminal, or on Windows, your command prompt. It should be a similar process. Oh, it's in the wrong. Sorry, trying to get my terminal up here. There we go. So now in your terminal, if you just paste that in, hit enter, and it will install React Native or Expo for you, which is used to create React Native apps. I've already installed this, so this should be pretty quick for me. For you, it might take a little longer than what mine does, but I'll probably skip this part anyway, so I'll see you once this is. Okay, now that it's done, we can continue on. So let's clear this, and now let's cd into our project folder. So I'm going to move into the folder I want to use. Let me just list this. Oh god, there's so many in it now. We're now on day 63 of 100 days codes. But don't worry, you don't have to watch it from the start to know what's happening. This is just, they're all different videos. They all don't link to each other unless they say part 1, part 2 sort of thing. And this will be a React Native to-do app. And let's hit enter. CT into day 6. Did I call it day 64? Oh, it's not day 64, it's day 63. There we go. Nice, sorted. Okay, now we are in here. We can now, if we head over, it'll tell you what next we need to do. And the first thing we need to do, or the next part we need to do, is call this here Expo init. And what this will do is run or create a new React Native project called whatever you want it to be called. So here, if we get Expo init and we give it a name, we'll say to do app, and we hit enter. This is going to give us options, blank or tabs. We're going to use, so this is a managed workflow. These are bare minimal. So this is like, you can read what it says there. The one we're going to be using, say, is blank, as it gives us the template we need. We don't need tabs or anything like that. Now here it's going to ask you to name your project. So here you just write the name of your project. We're going to say React Native to do application, and then the slug is going to be to do app. Let's hit enter, and this is going to now create our app, and I'll see you once this is done. Okay guys, as you can see, it's now done. We can now cd into this, so let's cd into our project, and if we list out, you can see there's a bunch of different things which have been put into this folder. Now if we run in here, well, if you open this folder up in your favorite text editor, mine is Visual Studio Code, so I'm just going to type code dot and just bring it along for now. And these are the files we have. Now in here we have multiple different things. You might notice it kind of similar to actual React. You have an app.js, This watchman config basically, but it's just configuration. You can set up some different configs in there. Git ignore, because this is a default, a git or a repo. And then there's this stuff here where you can change the name, the slug, and all the information about your app. Yep, and then once you've got your assets here, which is just like images you normally put in there, for now we don't need those. We could delete them, but we're going to leave them for a minute. Now if we go into app, oh, I've already got it open, sorry, my bad. As you can see, we import React like we were doing a normal React app, but instead of importing React DOM, in this one we import React Native, which gives us our native components, because the main difference between React and React Native is the fact React Native uses native components, such as a view or a text component, and these have very limited styling. So it's all done by Flexbox. I think it's moved around by the Flexbox style of grid layout sort of thing. And then you can use stuff like background color, align items, justify content, stuff you can't really use, stuff like text decoration. Try to use that and it doesn't understand what that is. And there's quite a few others what it doesn't understand, because this is again native app. There's different ways to do things. There's probably a different way to do the styling. And as you can see here, this is our style sheet. So here, let me go through everything. So now we create a new component out of React component like we do in normal React. We then render a component or what we want to render to the page, and by doing that we return some JSX, and JSX is a way of writing HTML inside of JavaScript. It's a compiler. Is it a compiler? Basically this would end up being something such as create element sort of thing, what you see in normal JavaScript. And this says view, and then it adds a style to it, and instead of writing class here or class name like in React, we actually write style, and then we pass through this object styles.container, which contains its styles. As you can see here, we created styles with a new style sheet, which we pull through from React Native, and we create it, and then we pass through an object, and the object is an object of objects that correspond to classes. So this is basically a class, and these are its properties. And then we create another one here, let's say header, and in here we can write some styles, let's say color of black, and then that would apply styling to our header. This is erroring because I haven't put quotes around it, but yeah. So yeah, that's one way we could do styling inside of React Native. You could also write this stuff out inline. So in here, instead of doing that, you could pass through an object, and the object can have your styles. So everything what's in this style sheet can actually be written in here inside of another object. But again, we're going to say styles.container. So yeah, so where we were was talking about how these render. Oh no, the style. So yeah, you can then add in a class or these styles, so styles and then dot container, which would relate to this styles in here. And then we have a text field which applies our text. So now let's start our application. So as you can see, we can see what this does by starting it. So in here we now need to write npm inside of our directory. We need to write npm start, and this is going to start. So if you look in the package.json, as you can see, this is right here, this script npm start. There's also iOS to start it in iOS mode, and eject to eject, I'm guessing. Okay, that's being really annoying. Just back to the default one. There we go. And as you can see in our terminal, it has started up this surfer, which doesn't really do anything. So now if we want to open up iOS, as you can see here, we can press I, or if we're on Windows or even on Mac and we have Android Studio set up, we can click A. I need to mention that you need to have Xcode installed for this. To get it, you go to the App Store and just type in Xcode and hit that first download link on the App Store. And for Windows, you'll probably need Visual Studio and an Android SDK setup and stuff like that to use Android. And you can also run Android on a Mac too. So let's press I, and this is going to start our iOS simulator. And this might take a minute for you. As you can see, it started up my simulator there. Okay guys, as you can see, it's opened up, and this actually opened up here, so on our iOS simulator. Now, one of the best things about React is that if I now change something in here to say, let's say, hello world, and we hit save, it hot reloads our iOS simulator. So I know hot reloading is normal inside a web browser, but inside of an iOS simulator, to normally do this, I have to restart I have to rebuild and then rerun my Xcode compiler or something like that to then get a whole new window running. But in React, they have created it so there's a tunneling system that basically allows you to tunnel into this app and update it on the fly, which is absolutely amazing. So as you can see, first off, we've created a little hello world application. Now, next thing we're going to do is we're going to go probably into components, but first I'm going to talk about the constructor. So there's a bunch of different things inside of React, and there is lifestyle methods just like React. In React Native, there's lifestyle methods just like there is in React. The first one is the constructor, which is in every single, which is in any class really, even in normal vanilla JavaScript. This is a normal, a vanilla piece of or method. And what a constructor is, as soon as the class is created on screen, so as soon as it's rendered or created, it will run any code which is in here. And the first thing we want to do is call super, because I'm not 100% sure what this actually does. This is just if without it, it errors. Trust me, I've come across this error so many times, and I don't actually know what it does. I know you'd super props and stuff. If anyone knows what that does, then you can just say in the comments, you know. But anyway, we can then say this dot state, and we can set a state just like in React. So what we're going to need for the to-do app is we're going to need a few things. We're going to need a to-do input, which is going to be when we create a input bar, this is what's going to be updated and added to the pushed into a new to-do. And then we're going to need a to-dos array. So if we create to-dos and just have an array, let's add a couple of things in this. So what our to-do array needs is objects, and in our objects we need an ID, the actual title of the to-do, a task, and we can say here, take out the trash. And then we need a done value to know if we have completed a task. Then let's do the same thing here, but we'll add a 1 and we'll say title, which is going to be equal to cook dinner. And then also done can be equal to false. And that'll be it for now. We just need 2 little to-dos. So that's how we initialize our state. But just to go over a few things, you can do other lifecycle methods, and one of them is component will mount, and then I believe component did mount. And these basically call just before each other before the component is rendered to the screen. And there's other ones as well. You can look at lifestyle methods on and hooks on the React Native documentation. It's this way, isn't it? Yeah, you can look at those sort of things in here. And if you go to docs, that was the docs, and they'll probably be in here somewhere. Maybe if we search lifestyle, or what are they called? Life cycle. That's it. Life cycle methods. This something different, but yeah, or you can look at the React lifecycle methods. Kind of want to type in native because I'm not sure if they're different or not. Hey, so that's a good image there. Oh, where's it gone? Oh no, here it is. So as you can see here, you have the constructor, which we use, the component will mount, then the render method, then the component did mount. So this one's called first, then it will call the component will mount, then it calls the render function, which calls component did mount, and then this will then feedback and call render. So this is now the cycle here. So every time you would break or destroy something and then re-render it, it would then start from the top. But this is how it basically works here. And every time you update your state, this is what will be re-rendered. Component did mount. So just that's a good understanding of how it works. I'm happy they're the same. Anyway, back to what we were doing. So in here, we now need to create our views, right? So our actual view. So let's remove this, and container will be fine. We can leave container. I am now going to do some. So in iOS, we need to have a status bar, because as you can see, these are right here, and we don't want the background to destroy that. So let's say here, if we set the background to be red or black, we'll just do 0, 0, 0, hit save. As you can see, you can't see those right now. They've disappeared into nothing because, well, because they're hidden. But now we can create a status bar, and by doing that, we can just say view style is going to be equal to styles.statusbar, and then it's view. So that's all we need. Now in our styles, we want to basically just say status bar, and set that equal to background color, and in our case, we're going to use FFCC00, which is nice yellow, and we're going to give it a height of 20 or just 20, which stands for 20 pixels. If we hit save, when this loads, it should hopefully have the correct styles. So that is correct styles. Hit save, and it's not rendering. Why is it not rendering? I don't know. Let's figure that out. So we've got the view style equal to styles.statusbar, which has a background color of yellow and a height of 20. And also we don't need this stuff here, that can go. So there you go. So it was the flex element inside of container ruining it. So there you go. We now got a header. So now even if our background was black, we'd still see our status bar. So this just makes sure our content isn't touching that status bar as well. But status bars are really only on a Apple device. So how do we test for that? What happens if we want to make sure what happens if it's an Android device? So basically we want to create a platform here. And in this platform, we want to basically say, just underneath this render method, we're going to add a conditional method. And we're just going to say const. We'll create a component here, and we'll call it status bar, and we're going to set this equal to platform. So we just pulled platform from React Native, and this basically tells us what platform we are on. And here we want to check for what OS we're on. So we're going to say platform or platform.os, and this is going to find out which operating system we're using, and we're going to check for iOS. So if we're using iOS, we're going to use this shorthand if statement, as I call them, and we're going to say view. Well, in theory, we're just going to call this here. But if that doesn't work out, we're then going to say view, and it's just going to be an empty view because we don't want to render really anything, but we have to add something else, it will error. So let's go status bar, and now let's add a semicolon at the end of that. Let's close the sidebar. So now if we hit save, everything still renders perfectly the same. We've used a conditional here to check which platform we're on. So if we were rendering on Android right now, this would not show. It wouldn't show the status bar, but it shows status bar because we're on iOS. And that is how we can do some conditional platform stuff. So if you want stuff will only appear on iOS or Android, you can do stuff like this. I believe Android is literally just like writing out Android and so forth, but you can check out on the documentation what that is. The next thing we want to do, we want to create the header, and we're going to actually create a component to do this. We're going to create a header component just like you would in React. So now in our file system, let's create a new folder and call this components. And inside there, we're going to create header.js. Now we just want to basically copy these first 3 lines here, 4 lines, and write that down. And now here we're going to change this out for header. And up here, we're just going to have just the three basic ones there. Now, saying that, we've just created a header, but there's two ways of creating components. We could do this way, which is called a state, or a component with a state, and then we can create a stateless component, which is mainly just for rendering static stuff if you want stateless, and then, or not fully static, like you can pass through like props and stuff, which we'll get onto in a minute. But this method is called, this is basically like class, I don't know how you would classify this, because this is basically a class-based component which has a state, and the other method I'm about to show you is a stateless. And because the header is just going to be a very simple header with a bit of text in it, we're going to use a stateless component, and we're going to say const header, and we're going to set that equal to an arrow function where we pass through some props. And these props are basically things that are passed through from the parent. And we're just going to say return, and this is going to, in this return function, we're going to have something to render, and we're going to say view style is equal to styles.header, not style sheet, just styles. And then inside there, we're going to create a text where we say style is equal to styles.title. And in here, we're going to pass through some props. We're going to say props.title. And I'm going to get onto that in 1 second. First things first, we need to create our styles. So let's say const styles is equal to a stylesheet.create, which could create a new style sheet for this component. And we're going to pass through header, which can have a background color. That's not how you spell background color, Tyler. Background color of 171717, so really dark gray. It's going to have the height, not that height again, height of 60. And then we're going to say align items, and this is camel case. Anything in, so let's say in normal CSS, you'd write items like this, or is it like that? I believe it's like that. Align items with a hyphen. Anything like that, you'd replace the hyphen with a capital letter afterwards. And we're just going to say center. We're then going to say justify content, and we're going to set this also equal to center. Now, if we hit save, nothing's going to happen, because first of all, we want to say here export default, and we're going to pass through the header component we created up here. So now we're able to access this header component in our app.js file. So up here, we're going to say import header from, and we're going to do some single quotes, and we're going to say components/header. And now inside of our render method here in our return, we're going to say header. Now if we hit save, as you can see, we just get a black bar, and we've added some, we want to add a title, which we have here, but it's not rendering anything. For starters, we need to change the color of the title, because remember, it's going to be black, which means we're not going to see it very well on this really dark gray. So let's create the color, and it's going to be a really, really light gray. We're then going to set the font size to be 28 pixels, the font weight to be 900 font weight, which is like heavy or black. And then we're going to say text transform, which is allowed, and we're going to say uppercase to make it all uppercase. So now if we hit save, again, nothing happens. Why is that? That's because we're passing through props, but we're not actually passing anything through from the parents. So up here, we want to say title, and how you pass props is you give it the name of whatever you want the prop name to be, and you set that equal to either a string, you can set it through to some JSX, so you can put in an object or anything in here. We're going to use just a string for now, and we're going to say hello world. Hit that and hit enter, and as you can see, it's rendered to screen. So anything we put in here, let's say to do app, hit save, and we get to do app. So that is how we create a stateless component. You just create a arrow function, which is assigned to a variable, or a constant in our case. You add its styles, you export it, and you render it inside of the main component. And that is all we need for the header. So that header is solid, it looks good, it's basic and plain, just like what I like. The next thing we want to do is we're going to create the input bar, and the input bar is obviously where we will add in our different things. And now the input bar is going to be a stateless component too, because there's not really much we do with it. So let's create, oh my bad up here, let's create a new file and we'll call it inputbar.js. Now we want to basically paste in the same stuff we did before, but with a couple of extra properties. So here we have our style sheet, our normal style sheet, and we have the normal text and the view, but now we have two new elements. And for our input bar, we need a text input, so where we write our new to do, and then we need this touchable opacity. And what this is a touchable component that uses opacity. So every time you click it, it fades opacity and then fades back when you let go. And this is used as a button in our case. There is a button function or a button component, but we're not going to use that until later on in this video. So now once we've done that, we're going to say const input bar, and we're going to set it equal to an array function, and we'll go past props, an arrow function, sorry, and then we're going to return. Now we're going to create a new view, and it's going to have some styles. So we're going to say styles.input container. We're then going to have the text input, so this new element, and this is actually a single line, or not an open and closing tag. This is just a single tag element, which is going to have a styles property, which is going to be styles.input. And now we need to do some two-way binding, but first we need to actually pass through some props. So if we go here and we create this input bar, so if we say input bar, and up here we import it, so we say input bar from input bar, and we hit save. It's probably going to error. Yep. Now if we hit save here, and we need to export default input bar save. It's probably still going to error. Yes. Can't find variable styles, and that's because we need to create our style sheet now. So let's say const styles and set that equal to stylesheet.create, and we're going to pass through our input container, which can have a flex direction. So we're going to set flex to be row, because by default inside React Native it is on column. We're then going to say justify content, and we're going to set this to space between. We're then going to set a shadow offset, which is going to be a object, which is going to say width, it's going to be 0, and a height, which is also going to be 3. We don't want to say shadow color. So this is more of this is a lot different to what we are used to using, such as writing shadow in one func or CSS declarative, I don't know, in one thing, and we're going to say shadow opacity, and we're going to set that to 0.1, which is just 0.1. So if we hit save, again, it's going to have some issues here. Shadow opacity, show opacity, that's my bad. There we go, hit save, and now that should be better. There we go. Still, we can't see anything because we need to add some stuff inside of it. So now we're going to set the input field, which we've created here, and we're going to set the input equal to background color, and it's going to be our light gray. We're going to say flex 1, font size 18, and the height of 35. If we hit save, as you can see, we've got the bar with a slight shadow underneath. we now want to add an add button. So to do that, we're going to create the touchable opacity. So as we said earlier, we're going to give it this style of styles.addButton. And in here we need a text variable, which is going to have the style equal to styles.addButton text. And let's add in there. Hit save. And as you can see, it's right there at the end. Let's now style that up. So we're going to say add button. We're going to say the width is equal to 100. The background color is equal to our yellow. We're going to align items center to align text in the middle. Center. And this one's going to say justify content center. And we're then going to say add button text. And what this is going to do is control the text we put inside of it. We're then going to set the font size to 18 and the font weight to 700. Now if we hit save, can't find variable center. Oh, I forgot to put in a some single quotes around those. We hit save. There we go. But our add button is now in there, and it is 100 width of the row, the flex row. Now let's start adding functionality to this, because obviously we've got this style down. We now need to add some functionality to update our actual to-dos. And in the input, if we want to say, just like normal React, if we want to say value and set that equal to something, such as props.todo input, we can't do that without doing an onChange method. And the onChange method basically checks for when the text input changes, and it sets the state equal to what we have changed. And to do this, we want to create the value, the style, the value. So let's bring these all onto their own line. So styles, we got value. And on here, we're going to say onChange text. We're going to say to do input. So we're going to pass through the to do input. And we're going to say props.textChange. So we're going to pass this function as a we're going to pass this function as a prop. And we're going to say to do input. And we're going to hit save. Now, nothing's going to happen. If we go back to our app here in our input bar, we want to add a few variables. So now we want to say text change, and we're going to set that equal to do input this dot set state to do input. Now let's explain the code I just wrote there. So what we've done here is we've found the text change. We've added this text change function or prop. We then call it inside of our input bar here. So every time we update this in here, we then set it equal to an arrow function passing through the input we've put in here, so the value inside here. We then set the state equal to do input. This is the same as writing to do input, but more shorthand, by the way, if anyone didn't know. And that is one variable we've passed through. So now let's say we want to see that variable. So now underneath this, let's write down here, and we're going to say this.state.todo input. Hit save. Oh, this needs to be in a text view. Let's remove this one here. Hit save. And now there's nothing on our screen, but as we start typing, as you can see, it's writing down here where we've passed the input, and this is all live, and it works perfectly fine. And that is basically what's happening in the background there for that one specific thing. Now we want to actually add the add button value. So let's bring these onto one line. And let's say add new to do. And we're going to set this equal to another arrow function, which this time it's going to call another function, which is going to be add new to do. And the reason I'm doing these functions and stuff inside of the main component instead of input bar is because it means we can manipulate data instead of just manipulating references of data, which means we directly update our state from the main app file. Okay, so now we're going to call add to do. In our input bar, we're going to say inside of our touchable opacity, we're going to say on press, which is a touchable opacity attribute or property. And we're going to say on press, we're going to say props.add new to do. So what we've passed through here, add new to do, we're going to call this as soon as we click the add button. So right now, if we create this function, or this method, as you can see, we're calling a method, and we call it add new to do. We then pass through the event, no, nothing. And in here, we just log the to do input, which is the state. So now if we type in here, hello, and we hit add, cannot find to do input. So where is it? Oh, this should be this.state.to do input. Now in here, let's try that again. Test, add. As you can see in the console down here, we got test. Let's say if we change it to hello, hit add. As you can see, it updates to hello. And this is basically, oh, hello Siri, go away. Ow, my ears. So this is basically really simple stuff. Now to add the to-do to the to-dos array, what we want to do is we want to create a reference or a copy of the to-dos. So we're going to say to-dos is equal to this.state.to-dos. We're then going to say to-dos.unshift to add the new to-do to the front of the to-dos array. And we're going to say, we'll pass through an ID, which is going to be to-dos.lengths +1. So the length of the array +1. We're then going to say to do this.state.to-do input. We're then going to say done is equal to false just by default. We're then going to set the state of the to-dos. We're going to say this.setState, and we're going to say to-dos is equal to to-dos, or for shorthand we could just write to-dos. We can then write to-do input is equal to an empty string. So after we've added the new to-do, we want to set this input field to nothing, and that's what we're going to do with setting the to-do input field. Let's hit save. In here, let's say hello. Let's hit add, and we don't know if it's worked. So let's run a call in here. Say log test1, and let's copy this test2. Let's hit save. Let's go here, let's say test, let's hit add, and as you can see, they are console logged out at the bottom there. So that is working perfectly fine. And now we can add to-dos. But now how do we render the to-dos to the screen? And there's a biggie, so there's a big one. We've got to use a new component, so we need to call it up here. And we're going to call this the FlatList. And what a FlatList is a way of writing lists out in React Native. It's a native version of a list. Now inside, just after the input bar, we want to call this FlatList. And again, it is a single element, so there isn't multiple elements. Multiple tags. And under FlatList, we want to pass a few things. The first one we want to pass is data, and we're going to say this.state.todos. So data is the array or the stuff we want to loop through to be inside of our list. and we're going to say data is equal to this.state.todos. Once we have the data set, we can then get a key extractor, because every single item you create needs a key, and using a key extractor makes it so you can see a lot better, or see your keys a lot better. Now in key extractor, we're going to say item, and we're going to pass through the index 2. We're then going to say index.toString, and we're going to set that equal to a function to call it. So basically our key is going to be our index, the number of, or position of our list item, and we're basically setting it to string because you can't pass through direct numbers to the key extractor. After the key extractor, we're going to say render item, and we're going to set this equal to an arrow function, which is going to return some JSX. So this whole thing is built on JSX, and this time we're going to return some JSX. So inside of the arrow function, we're going to pass through or deconstruct the item, or the each to do. So this is going to call each for every single to do inside the to do's state, and we're going to say item, item and the index again, just like we did with the key extractor, but this time a bit more in depth. And now in our return function, is this correct? So saying there's an error, but I think it's because it's like in there. Now in here we can say to do item, and what this is going to be another custom component we're going to create. So let's go off and create that component. So inside components, let's create a to do item, because we need the item which we want to render to the page. Now in our to do item list, we then want to create this time a stateful or a state driven component, and we're going to say import React from, and then we're going to say React. We're then going to say import Stylesheet text, button and touchable opacity from React Native. We're then going to create a new class called to do item, and we're going to say it extends React.component. We're then going to pass through a constructor, and this is going to pass through some props, which we're going to just use super on. We're then going to use the render lifecycle method, and we're just going to write in here const to do item. So we're going to set the to do item equal to this.props.to do item. So we're going to pass through this to do item through the parent, and then when we get here, we're going to set it equal to do item, so we don't have to write out this.props.to do item so many times. We're then going to return to pass back our JSX, or our markup. And the wrapper for this is going to be a touchable opacity, so the whole thing should be clickable. We're going to add some style, which is going to be styles.to-do item. And then once we have done that, let's add in some more things, such as a text field, which has the style. There we go. Style, and we're going to set that equal to do item. Actually, we're going to use the done property inside of our to-dos, this done property, and we're going to basically make some conditional rendering again. So inside style, we're going to do, or some conditional styling, shall I say. We're going to say to do item dot done. So we're going to check if it's done. If it is done, we're going to say color is equal to AAA, which is Rital. Let's make that official, or official string. And that basically is a really in between light and dark gray. We're then going to set an else on this, or a shorthand else, and we're going to then pass back instead color is going to be equal to its usual self. Now inside of this text file, we're then going to pass through to do item.title. Let's hit save. And hopefully this should render something, but at the minute we're passing through nothing. And basically to pass through the stuff we need to pass through, inside this to-do item, we're going to say, is it to-do list or to-do item? We'll say to-do item, and we're going to set this equal to item, item, which is going to be the simple to do. If we hit save, can't find variable to do item. I capitalized to do item in here, I believe, somewhere. Where is that? So that says it is on 53, which is here. To do item is equal to item. I'm guessing it is in here then. Where is this? It's somewhere breaking stuff. I see the issue. We ain't actually imported our to do item. Let's say to do item, and then to do item, hit save. And there we go. As you can see, we get the two elements. And now when we tap them, we get this little opacity change, which is done by touchable opacity. And now we should be able to add new ones. So if we say hello and we hit add, you can see nothing happens. But if we drag it down, also nothing happens. Why is that? So if we go back into our app here, that is because our input bar has passed through. It has an onPress, it has its text change variable, which I believe is all good. It looks good. And then to do item is here, and our data is here. So, and that should be index. Now in here, we actually need to pass something else, something called extra data, because the FlatList will not update on its own. It only updates when it listens to its extra data. And in our extra data, we're going to say this.state. So if we hit save, and now we add something new, as you can see, it added something new, but it didn't pass through correctly. Why is that? So let's have a look. So add new to do. We get the to-dos. We unshift it, which means it adds it to the beginning. We +1 to the ID of the length. This.state.to-do input, which is right here. And then we set done to false. Nice. Now, every time we add one, let's just console log. And we're going to console log this.state. Hit save. Let's try it again. So let's say test, add. Now let's have a look. So test has actually gone through, but it hasn't updated. It's like added a blank element into our page. So let's have a look why. So our flat list, we render the item. We render the item from, we render our to-dos, we give it the extra data, which is the state. We then add the key extractor, which has the item and the index, and we use the index to get the key. And then we render the item, which is to do an item list. And then we say to do item is equal to do item. Okay guys, I see the issue we have created. The issue is here in to do, this is actually meant to be called title. And then down here I've actually passed through the to do input to our input bar. So we just had to pass in here to do input is equal to this.state.to-do input. And now that should all be working fine. So now if we come over here and we say test and we click add, as you can see now our test has been passed through. Our new to-dos will be adding to our list. Let's add some styles to this quickly. So we're going to say const styles. Oh, that's nice. Styles is equal to stylesheet.create. And we're going to say to do item is going to be equal to width of 100%, which I don't know if it's necessary, but we'll use anyway. Height of 40, a border bottom color of DDD. We're then going to use a border bottom width of 1, a flex direction of row, and then we're going to use the align items. We'll set that equal to center, and then justify content. We're going to set this to space between, and then padding left of 15 pixels. Let's hit save. Now that has not been added in here, so style, so this should say styles.todo item, not style list. There you go. So now there you go, they are in there. And what we want to do to our button is, so now when we toggle, we need to add in a toggle here. So we've added this style here, but what this does is basically mean once our item is marked as done, it sets it as done. So if we go over to our app and in our to-dos, if we set the second one to true, as you can see it's made it all grayed out. If we set it to false, it's back to normal. And that is because inside of our to-do item, we have added in this style like inline if statement. And we need to basically toggle every time we click on it to change to a different, to basically toggle it if it's done. And to do that, we're basically going to do an onPress method. So it's like an onClick sort of thing. And we're going to use an arrow function that says this.props.toggle done. And we're going to call it. So now, if we go back to our app and we go down to our to-do item, we can now add this function. And to do that, we just say toggle done, and we set this equal to another arrow function that says this.toggle, toggle done. And we pass through the item, which is being passed through in the render method. Now, if we go scroll up, we need to create this method. So underneath add new to do, we're going to say toggle done, and this is going to say item, and this is going to say let to do's. So again, we're going to copy the to do's, state.todos. We're then going to say to do's is equal to do's dot map. And we'll pass through the to do, and we'll say if todo.id is equal to item.id. So we pass through the item up here, we're setting it, so we're checking if they match. If they match, we're going to say todo.done is equal to not todo.done. And basically what this says, so if this is true already, it will set it to false. If it's false already, it will set it to true. Now we just need to return the to do, and underneath this we need to say this.setState, and we need to pass through the to-dos. If we hit save and we tap one, as you can see, it's now toggled the done method. So now it is done, not done, done, not done, and so forth, which basically all you need for that simple like variable sort of thing, changing the variables to match it conditionally. Conditional rendering. That's what I'm trying to say. Now the last thing we need to do is inside of our to-do item, we now need to remove it. So we've got everything, all the basics. We now need to add in a remove button. And to do that, we just come in here and we need to pull through a button, which we already have. So as I said, we're going to be using button. And what this is, it's another single tag variable here. So here, let's say title, so we need to give it a title, and whatever we put here is going to be what appears as the text for the button. We don't want to give it a color, and we're going to use the same method we use up here. So I'm going to copy this and paste it down here, but change style to color, and where we've written color here, I'm going to just delete it and just pass through the string, and we also don't need these extra curly braces. There you go. So now that is going to set its color, but we don't want it to be exactly that color. We want it to be an RGBA, which is going to be 200. 0, 0, 0.5. So when it is done, it's going to be slightly darker or slightly translucent compared to what it should be, which is 255, 0, 0, and 1. So now if we hit save, yes, it needs stuff, but as you can see, we got the remove button. But the remove button doesn't do anything, and also the color is having some issues here, but I think that's because we need to say on press, set that equal to an arrow function. That's going to say this.props.remove to do. Save. Okay, so it says here invalid prop. What did we do here? So, we forgot to add in the extra parenthesis there. There we go. So now the color works. Now if we toggle this done, as you can see, it becomes dim or translucent as well as the cooked dinner, or looks like a lighter shade anyway. And now on the onPress, we're going to use another prop which we have passed through. So another method we pass through to this to do item. And on here, we're just going to write remove to do is going to be equal to a arrow function again, and we're going to say this dot remove to do, and we're going to pass through the item once again. Now underneath toggle to do, we're just going to say remove to do, and all remove to do is actually even simpler than the toggle to do, and we're just going to say item, and then we're going to say let to do. So we're going to get a copy of our to do's array again. We're then going to say to do's is equal to do's dot filter, and it's going to be an arrow function, and this is going to be a to do, and we're going to filter it to do dot id is not equal to item dot id. So we're going to remove the item we've just clicked on because we're passing through the item down here, and we're just going to remove it once we're done. Now under here, we're going to write this.setState, and we're just going to say to-dos again. Now if we hit save and we hit the remove button, as you can see, it gets completely removed. We hit the remove from that one. We can say new to-do 1, new to-do 2, new to do 3, and if we mark this one as done and then remove number 3 and then say mark number 1 as done, undo number 2 and remove number 2, as you can see, it all works perfectly fine. And that is all we needed for this video, people. So I hope you learned something new about React Native, or you learned how to use React Native. I know this video is quite fast paced, and for some bits I might not have explained it clear enough, but if you have any questions, then drop them in the comments below. If you have any other queries or anything like that, then you can head over to our Discord channel to ask me questions there, or again, just drop them in the comments below. If you did enjoy the video, guys, leave a thumbs up, and if you want to see more, then smash that subscribe button. Don't forget, this is a series video, so there is many more videos just like this, learning different technologies, different JavaScript, CSS, and stuff like that. This is day 63 of that, and we are, 64 is going to be tomorrow, and in day 64 we'll be doing Vue Native. So we're going to be doing the exact same app but in Vue Native, which is basically the equivalent of React Native for Vue, and I prefer it, but they are missing a few features, but we'll go over that tomorrow, guys. For now, I hope you enjoyed, and I hope you learn how to make your first React Native app. For now, guys, peace out, and I'll speak to you guys tomorrow.
Always do it on my own, so I gotta get through it. And the only thing I know is to love what I'm doing. Never give up, never slow, till I finally prove it. Never listen to the no's, I just wanna keep moving. Keep my head up when I act, head up, that's a fact. Never looking back, I'ma keep myself on track. Keep my head up, staying strong, always moving on. Feel I don't belong, tell my thoughts to move along. Push myself to